This week, Evan has joined us to talk about the art of turning your colleagues into internal advocates. And I've had, I cannot believe her right now. I'm so sorry. I've had a lot of people reach out about this. Maybe they can't make it, they want the recording, things like that. So, Evan, you're welcome to jump on and take it away. I put the screen share on so that you can do that if you'd like, or we can just have an open discussion about it. And I'll let you take the lead on that. I do tend to interrupt if I see a lot of questions in chat and want to share that. So,
Yeah, please do. Hey everyone, happy Friday. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I was originally, and I may still do it, depends. I was going to use some slides that I developed for something else, and I think Lauren, you might have seen this. I think you're the only one who I'm seeing on here who was in Boston, maybe somebody else for the Customer Marketing Summit, but I may still do that if Lauren doesn't mind in case anyone else, but I don't think it'll be the same because it's a different settings, different people. But you guys tell me if that's okay. Does that work? Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Um, I didn't hear. Does Lauren, is that fine with you? I don't want to bore you, but hopefully it's not the same.
you're okay. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. All right. So let me just pull this up. Let's see. Can everyone see these slides now? Yes, maybe.
Yes.
Um, my company is no longer using Zoom, so I've like literally forgotten how to do stuff. But all right, let's try this again. Okay, cool. So yeah, let me just start out by starting out. So just some background on myself. So Evan Jacobs, and I've been in SaaS space for about 12 years now, across a couple different companies. I think I know a couple folks in this call, but not all. But happy to connect with everyone now and later. Just a little more about myself. Got my two boys and my dog to keep me busy outside of work. Luckily, there's fun stuff to do at work, but also outside of work. Just also a little background on the company I work. So I work at a company called Chainalysis, which is a blockchain data and analytics company. It's a it's a SaaS company, just like many of you probably work at. But we serve compliance, investigations, and growth purposes. So we work with private sector companies, both banks and others in the crypto space, crypto native companies, but also government customers, which is public sector, which is I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But it's a unique type of company, and I've been with them for about 3 years now. So these are the types of offerings we have I was mentioning. So I think it's probably obvious to everyone here, right? Like why internal advocates within your company are important, right? I think it's obvious probably, and was also obvious to me when I was joining this job, but I never knew how important they would be. The reason to talk about that is just our private sector customers, right? Some of these might be household names, right? Christie's, who's doing NFT auctions, and we work with them. Robinhood on their trading side. BNY Mellon, I think, the oldest bank in the US, and lots of crypto companies as well. This is the side of things that I'm really familiar with, right? The private sector side, and probably a lot of us have that similar experience. This is the side that I know well. It's the other side that I'm less familiar with, our government sector side, because I think these are publicly referenceable. There's lots of things we can do with them, like we all know, but it's the other side of the coin, right? That this is our list of our public sector customers today that are publicly referenceable, right? Like really small list for now, right? And I think therein lies the challenge, right? Because when I think of our book of business today, right, it's revenue-wise 70% public sector, 30% private sector, right? So it's sort of a unique mix, and it's a mix that I've never seen before personally where I've worked. It's always been very different. It's always been uh, like 85% private sector, 85, 90%, maybe 10, 15% public sector. So a lot of my experience, like I said, has been on this private sector side. And what I'm learning is that, right, what works for most SaaS businesses who are serving private sector customers isn't going to work here, right? So that's why I found that sort of having these internal advocates on your side, understanding what your program is about, how they can help or how you can help them more likely, has been really important just because of this scenario that I was facing in this new role. Out of curiosity, has anyone worked in a place where it's been more oriented toward public sector, or is it everyone had sort of the previous experience similar that I did out of curiosity?
I would say I'm in the same boat as you, where I've mostly worked with private sector companies, and now we're making a big push into the public sector. And so trying to figure all of this out.
Okay, good. Well, that makes me feel better. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, no worries. You're the same. Okay, we came from that same background. So I'm going to talk through a couple of different approaches, or to scenarios that were happening, and sort of how my internal advocates were working together to really solve some of these challenges. So first one was go-to-market team, right? So our UK team needed public sector references, right? Like we need references. We were just talking about references. I heard Mary in the call starting references. We do that as part of our job, our role, our programs. And we sort of know what that motion looks like for private sector. But for public sector, it's such a different ball game. And I mean, Lauren, you're already starting to see it. Those that haven't, it's like they're not generally allowed to, right? It's sort of like the kind of policy is they can't show public preference for any vendor over another vendor, like generally full stop,
We
right?
got 15.
Sorry. Oh.
I don't think she meant to say
Oh,
anything.
no worries. I was liking that engagement. No, but so I think it's by its nature, right? If you're a public agency, government or law enforcement or whatever it is, generally the position is they can like you and use your product, and generally the most they can do is like, hey, like a one-on-one kind of scenario, they can kind of take a call or serve as a reference in that way. But which is helpful, which is great, and we need them. But at the end of the day, we also need to be able to have customers who are willing to advocate for us in a public setting, even if they are in that public sector. So our UK team was sort of needing the same, and so like, all right, what can we do about this? So what I actually did was I put together an industry awards program, so nominating our existing public sector customers for industry awards, right? So what the goal was to sort of find a way for existing awards, because we knew that our customers, even our public sector customers, could accept an award. They can accept an award. It's something they're allowed to do. It's like, okay, so let's try that. And then we wanted to basically, it's a win-win, right? Because we're going to win because if we can do this right, like we're able to show love to our customers, and they're going to love it because they look good in front of folks they care about. And I think the important part was I hadn't here like top tier industry awards, because there's a lot of awards out there. They're kind of pay for play. We kind of wanted to avoid those because people like don't want to put those online, or maybe don't mean so much in the industry, right? So what we did was, we had a three-step process here. So the first one was in the UK, we were looking for the award. We found this an industry award called the Tackling Economic Crime Award. A lot of our customers are law enforcement, right? So, and we found a category like, ooh, outstanding public sector law enforcement initiative. So like, okay, cool. So we found that, and we talked to the customer that, are you allowed to do this? Can we nominate you? And they were thrilled, right? So it was actually funny because I was about to be on vacation and the awards were due and we were going to miss it. So I asked our account teams who were running it, like, can you guys like kind of put it all together and submit it, because it was like we were 4 days we were going to miss it. So I didn't want to be the bottleneck. So actually we found the right customer. We got it all wrapped up. And we actually got it submitted, which was cool. And then there were a lot of nominations in this category. They were down selected to 9 finalists, and this is definitely like we weren't going to know until, like, we didn't know it was going to happen. So, but either way, I was like, all right, let's get our team out there. Let's get our team to this really nice hotel in London. They'll grab a table, they'll invite some prospects, they'll sit with our customers and whatever. And at the very least, hey, we'll have some networking and some fun times with them and hanging out. But the amazing part was our customers, so Metropolitan Police, they actually want it. And like when I think about this, I'm like looking at those smiles, I'm like, that's just like you can't fake that. Like there's nothing else like this. And what was cool is they were allowed to accept it. We were allowed to make some noise about it. It really helped on the relationship side. It's our customer, the third from the left with that holding that little purple cylinder. I don't know what it is. So he was sort of our main contact. And it was really cool because it was one of those things where I couldn't have done this alone. I wouldn't have wanted to do this alone. The AEs, the account teams, we hadn't thought about it. So it's sort of we really coming together and having these folks be an extension of my own team internally. It was really cool to see it happen. And it is now something that we can continue to do. It's now something that we know how to do. And also we've proven to ourselves, especially internally, that yeah, like nominating, it feels good. The customer will be happy either way, but especially when they win, right? So it was especially a nice way to start out. It was an in-person thing. And what's also cool about it is we can talk about measuring impact, right? So it's that business impact. We're creating these references, right? Strengthening those relationships, social promotion, but it's also something that now I have the relationships I need, that if I need to work with Met Police again, I know how to reach out. I know we can work with them. And it really elevated the brand of our contact, of that team overall. And it's a competitive differentiator because other folks haven't been able to do that. So it really felt like these awards are now a team sport. They're not my lonely job or customer marketing's lonely job to do this. So I'm happy to take a pause there and see if there are any questions on this first part, just about nominating customers for awards, industry awards, or anything about that. I saw a hand. Yes, I think. Christine,
Did you
yeah.
guys do all the work to put the application together for the award? Or how
We,
much involvement did the customers actually have with that part of the process?
okay, great question. Yeah. So in terms of the process itself, the customer had sort of they had a write-up that they had to get improved by their public affairs officer, because the good part about this case was that it was public, like it was in the newspapers, it had been out there, this particular case, this operation that we were highlighting. So they wrote something up, we sort of smoothed it over, we polished a little bit, and they got their team to sort of approve it, their public affairs team. So that was sort of the cornerstone, but we did the rest around the just the process and the sort of the legwork and the logistics around this particular award. Like there was no cost to submit. So but yeah, we kind of took kind of we quarterbacked that process with the customer, helping us to make sure that that sort of that that story that we submitted that accompanied it was approved, and that their team was allowed to participate and allowed to do this. Any more questions? Quiet group.
How can I ask a question?
Yeah, of
Hi.
course. Yeah.
How did you guys incentivize your teams to participate in the nominations?
Okay, great question. So Kathleen, so the good part was that actually for this, the sort of um the convincing or the incentivizing was actually the process itself. So because we had leadership support, there was actually like the account teams to me like were willing partners because they saw the upside here, right? So even though they were busy, even though there were things to do, other things to do on their radar, the engagement with their client, the chance to sort of highlight them was actually sort of, maybe it sounds so cheesy, but like actually that kind of was the incentive in and of itself, because they immediately saw like, hey, this isn't a favor for customer marketing or for me, or like this was actually in their best interest, because win, lose, or whatever, the customer was gonna feel some extra love behind this. So I think that was a helpful element. So like a spiff or anything wasn't necessary. And now that we've done this, this is just something that we do as an organization, especially within their region. So it's expected that they'll participate. It's expected that we'll source these, and it's actually like really a team effort, because the nomination process actually is not as hard as actually sourcing the right awards, right? Because I think finding the right award. So they're on the ground, they're in the UK, they're even closer than me, obviously, to like what's going on the ground. What do their customers actually care about? What will actually motivate them? So I think, I guess, Kathleen, I was lucky that the sort of incentive didn't have to be external, like, hey, like a gift card or whatever. It was more around like showing your customer love, deepening that relationship, especially for some of our key customers. That was actually important for them, and it made it, definitely a good use of their time to participate. But yeah, thank you. That was a great question.
Thank you.
Sure. Any others? Good group, good chatting. Davin, anyone else? I don't want to call out names. No, I'm just kidding. Marius, you come off mute.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, anybody that wants to ask a question, you can also put it in chat and I can read them off as they come up. So go ahead and engage and ask questions. Thank you, Evan.
Sure. All right, so I'm happy to keep it rolling. So, a second one was around, really, so I'll talk about cabs, right? So just want to get a sense, has everyone here like run a cab before, or at least been involved in a cab? I see some head shaking. Yes. I can't see some others, but yes. Okay, so we all pretty much have had that experience, and I think for me, I'd done that in previous roles, and even here at Chainalysis, we'd put together some cabs in different regions, putting a program together. Oh, okay. Kyle's just starting to identify cab members. Cool. So I think it's sort of part of our DNA, and I think cabs really are ways that customer marketers can shine. We can really show a lot of our value. They're very cross-functional. I feel like they have so much of that goodness that we bring to the table as practitioners. So I've done those. We've done one for our EMEA. We'd set up an EMEA cab for our private sector customers. We've done one in the Americas. It was great. And I was like, as I just mentioned earlier, like public sector, it's a big part of our business. I'm like, we should do a cab for our public sector, and our biggest book of business is in the Americas. I'm like, let's do a public sector cab. Like, great idea, and it is a great idea. Like, let's do that, right? But so put together some collateral, put together some documents, put together a little pitch, even the email templates, the account teams, customer success folks, account execs, they sent it all out. And I said, all right, so what are you guys hearing? What's everyone hearing back? And the response started coming in. Got a no, a no, a no, a no, no. Got like 15 no's and no yeses. I was like, oh my God, like I've really missed the mark here. I'm feeling terrible. Like I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, like I've really messed up. I've like endangered our accounts. And like in my mind, so I start asking them, and I talk to the account teams and I say, like, can you go back to your customers and find out like where we missed the mark? Like, do they not want to engage with us? Do they not want to, do they not like engaging with us? So they went back, and they heard back from all these public sector customers, and they said, we just simply can't join this thing. Like, oh no. And he's like, can you dig a little further? Why? They said, well, the name is wrong. We can't. We don't like the C, we don't like the A, and we don't like the B. We can't do any of those three. So for whatever reason, like if they can't have the word board because it sounds like there's like a fiduciary responsibility. They're not allowed, public sector agencies are not allowed to be in a board. They couldn't use the word advisory because it implied something else. It implied different relationship. They didn't even like the word customer, right? So it's like, so what I heard was that, so I said, but everything else actually they didn't have a concern with. So actually did the literal find, replace, took out cab, and we replaced it with something else, right? So we replaced it with something that we called PSWG, the Public Sector Working Group, but we didn't change anything else. We didn't have to change anything else in outreach. And then all of a sudden, everyone said yes. Every single customer from major law enforcement agencies to police departments to district attorneys' offices, just like, and everybody was a yes, but we didn't change anything else. So it was a huge learning for me. And actually, then we didn't just do the Americas one, we did Americas, and then we did Canada Public Sector Working Group. Then we did, just a couple of months ago, I was in London for our UK Public Sector Working Group, and maybe some other regions coming up as well. So it was a really interesting learning for me, specifically that we can rely on on what we know as customer marketing practitioners. I know most of the people are saying you've done cabs, run cabs, but it was a great sort of humbling moment for me, saying that, okay, what we know in our sort of arsenal, our bag of tricks for private sector, like, may have to think different. And I'm looking at you, Laura, and like, hey, we have to think maybe a little differently, but because what they're allowed to engage in, what we call things, what the nomenclature, what the acronyms, like, it all actually matters. But these have been some of the most impactful for me personally, just learning and seeing the engagement level and putting different types of customers in the room, like, just to see what that level of engagement, see that they take, 2/3 of their day to either fly out or come from wherever they're based, come to our DC office, come to our DC conference for these type of working groups. So it was really a humbling experience for me that, like, our learning is literally never done, right? Like, we're constantly learning as customer marketing practitioners, but really doing it with my account teams, with these internal advocates who didn't just like run away and say, you're at risk of ruining our relationships. They all said no. Like, we kind of worked on it together. We kind of brainstorm that name, like PSWG. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but that's fine. Like, it works for this audience, right? Even though we thought, and we know it, cab is an industry term, and it is for private sector, but public sector is just a different planet. So it was fascinating for me. And these, like I said, these have been such good learnings, and such great opportunities to engage, connect with our customers, and finding a way that they like to do, they are allowed to do, and it also plays into what we know how to do as customer marketers, but makes every day never dull, right? Like, the learning is constant. So I think for me, yeah, it was just it was just a great learning, and we got great feedback. Talk about networking, just how we put the content together, and it's really been a fun one. So let me take a pause there and see if anyone has any thoughts, questions, feedback on sort of that particular scenario there.
So as you know, Evan, I feel this deeply. I also had a bunch of public sector customers turn down our invitation to join the cab because they can't be a part of anything exclusive. And so thinking about how we're going to rework that, and I suspect we will land somewhere more along the lines of a working group or a round table or something like that. And, we'll probably have to just change up the tenor of it so that it's less of a cohesive like thing that you are joining, and more of we're hosting a session. Oh, we're hosting another session.
Right.
And just making it a little bit less about membership.
Yeah, and I think also for the rest of folks, like, things to think about are like, the swag you give away has to be like $20 or less. You can't cover any travel and expenses. You can't cover any hotel. Even the food has to be below a certain threshold, right? So these small things, which on private sector, we're like, we're going to go all out and we're going to do like a social event. Like, we can't really necessarily do this, but I think it definitely shows us that what sort of the training and practice that we've all had just doing customer marketing is still applicable, right? Like, it's still applicable at the core. It was a facilitated meeting. It did have a good experience. It was around collaboration. It was around building advocates, even though maybe that's not a word they like to use about themselves, right? So, yeah, so I think it's been a great learning. And I think even culturally, going across the pond, doing this in the UK, taking this model, was it going to work? Wasn't it going to work? And we bring our founder there, and it's like he like opens up the floor and like And like there's just that quiet moment there, like, wait, is nobody gonna speak? Like, is someone gonna speak up? And it just starts snowballing, everyone starts jumping in. So it's like, I think it really shows that public sector or whatever it is, they're just like the rest of us, right? They have a job to do. They like working with vendors that are important to them, and they like staying connected to other practitioners, folks in their space, and to collaborate and network. So I think it gives hope that what we're doing is actually pretty transferable, whether it's regionally, whether that's different sectors, different verticals. So I think it was it definitely felt good, and it definitely felt the account teams also. This is, and the beautiful part about this from my world is that this is not the lonely job of customer marketing. Like I always work on the content and everything with a customer success counterpart. And I think for me, it's totally 50-50 with them. And I would not change that. I wouldn't want to do this alone. I wouldn't want to do it without them. And it becomes everybody's job to make it a success. So I think that's why having those internal advocates, it feels like this is their job too. And it is. It's as much their baby as it is belonging to customer marketing. And I think that's really important. And that's where you're going to get the buy-in. Like you guys maybe have been in places before, like where it's like you're pushing up a hill, you're trying to get content, you're trying to get people invited, you're trying to pull it all together, and you feel like you're alone. So I think for me, that's been a big plus, is that having a someone else who's not you from a different part of the org, not only vouching, saying that this is important, but having that skin in the game, having that sort of shared success metric, pulling weight just equally together. I think for me, that's what makes it more fulfilling. That's what makes it more fun. That's what kind of de-risks this kind of activity. So yeah, so more to come on those in the future if we continue to chat. But as anyone's thinking about cabs, either now or offline, I'm always happy to share what I know or get your expertise as well. So yeah. Um and I'm happy to move on to a third one. And I think um I think for me, like talking about, I guess the public sector term, like force multiplier, right? It's like I'm only a one person team, right? But there's a bigger org either within marketing or outside of marketing that can sort of be having your back in lots of different ways. So I think for me, I knew I wanted to launch a customer engagement program. I'm not calling it an advocacy program, but a customer engagement program, really to be an umbrella program of the different engagements we have, different programs, whether it's product or customer marketing side or UX or all the different ways we have, but really bundling them up, putting them under an umbrella, but launching it in a high visibility, high profile way. And I thought I was going to launch it like maybe around now or maybe in mid-June, but was realizing that we had our major customer conference coming up, and this was like in February, and the conference was in like early April. It's like, well, actually, we should probably do that at the conference. And it was like a 6-week program, right? So we were calling it Pioneers. That was what the program was all about. And but what it actually meant was that to pull all those elements together, from branding, from design, from swag, from main stage, from the booth, from the video loop, from all this stuff, like in 6 weeks. And like I've done this before, but it's probably been more like 6 months. And I had a whole group of people working on it, and I had a team and all that. And I didn't have the luxury of time and have the luxury of like dedicated teams. So I sort of had to rely on my internal folks who were already busy with this big customer conference coming up anyway, and saying, oh, by the way, there's this whole brand new stream of work that's coming up, and it's got to be like amazing, and it's got to be main stage worthy, and it's got to be this, and it's got to be that, right? So I would say for me, the big part was that having people aware of how this was going to work, how this program is going to be supportive of what we were doing, it made it the glide path so much easier. So one thing that helped was talking about those internal advocates. We got to launch this on main stage on day one in the morning, like at our biggest customer event of the year, which for me was really cool. I've been at places where it's sort of been like, you don't really have that airtime, you don't really have that, but like this was really a seamless thing to like have it on main stage, have our CEO and co-founder talking about this program, which was just launching. So let me tell you, it really helps for visibility, but also, of course, external awareness and adoption, all that, but especially internally, like Oh, what are you talking about? Oh, it's that thing that Michael was talking about on main stage, right? Like, so it really helped a lot from that perspective. Like, oh, and also a booth, right? I didn't have a team for a booth, but our booth was actually staffed by two of my colleagues from our demand gen team who were unbelievable. And it was also part, I think what they also liked about it, they were really, really good at it, but I think they also felt about that it was really helpful because it helps them with their day job, right? They get to know our customers better. They get to talk to our prospects better in a really a low stress kind of way. So they were really so good and really just natural talking about the program and even giving me feedback like, hey, after day one, like we should think about this, changes we can make, updates and tweaks we can make. So it was really cool to see someone who sort of, it wasn't their day job to be running a customer program, talking about programs, launching them, but they just gravitated to it and they were amazing about it. Felt like an extension of my own team. Additionally, like the swag, the logo, the collateral, the stuff we had from the brand team, literally pulling this off in just like 5 or 6 weeks was like absolutely flooring to me. Like we had a challenge coin, and I know Lauren, looking at you, it can be something you think about for your public sector folks. Like the way it works is when you're in the military or like in like as you progress, you do certain missions, you accomplish certain things, and you get like a coin, and then people like keep those, and they have in a display case by their desk, and like they sort of keep them for over time. So I'm like, we should launch with like our own Pioneers program challenge coin. Like we actually created this thing, and that's just on the bottom of it, like a screenshot of it. But just like from everything and doing that, from laptop stickers to just the branding and the signage and everything, like pulling it all together, that usually would take like 5 times longer than that. And even more so, like having support from our global CTO. She actually took the time and to record like as part of this sizzle reel, this hype video that we had on stage and at the booth, from our CTO, our chief product officer, to really have that kind of executive support. It really matters. So could not have done that alone. So I think the results were really helpful. We had that amazing launch. We had tons of interest from both sides of our portfolio, lots of hand raisers at the booth and afterwards, and then just increased levels of awareness. I think that one was a real leaning on and requiring our advocates to internal advocates to join in. So I think for me, I mean, just to recap, I always try to have three takeaways. So I think the first one was building advocates to make things happen that you never thought possible. Like these couple of initiatives I was talking about, like, yeah, I could have dreamed about doing them. I could have even had a really good set of slides about them, but they would never have gone beyond those slides, right? They would have just been slideware, and I could not have done them myself. And I wouldn't have wanted to, and it would have been also no fun doing it myself. I think secondly, right, so I think it's the two-way street. By being customer marketers, I know all of us are finding ways to sort of become an extension of our stakeholders' teams, whether it's customer success, account executives, whatever it is, whoever your stakeholders are. Like we struggle, we hustle, we always find ways to bring value to them. Just feel like, hey, we're a part of their team, extension of their team, which is critical. We need to always be doing that. But on the flip side, it's like when the situation arrives, how can we do that on the flip side, right? So they become an extension of our team. And I think at the end of the day, you need those internal advocates, right? Because we're all only one person. We all only have 24 hours in a day, right? So it's like we're going to need them to be having our back at conversations that we're not at, meetings we're not at, just to sort of be talking up the program, be talking up the value to it, and just really being a cheerleader for the program, right? So I think you're going to need those people. So that's kind of the end of my slides, but I'm happy, Mary, to like look at the chat, and maybe I'm a little behind on that, but maybe we can
Um,
chat
yeah,
or
no, Maria had a couple of things she was just adding to the conversation. Um, I'm interested in, sometimes I feel like it's difficult to get the other teams on board. Was that relatively easy for you because they immediately saw the value, or did you struggle somewhat?
Um, so I would say I'm lucky here because I've been some places prior, that it really was a struggle to get that support. So I think one thing that I tried to do, and I believe I was able to do here at Chainalysis, was around bringing value first, right? Not coming asking like these things. I'm nearly 3 years at my job, so I sort of, let's say year 2 and beyond, I could felt like I'd the program myself, we'd sort of earned that ability to like start reaching out, because I think the elements that make up these programs had to build them out. So I think delivering that value first, right? Delivering to the teams, like um, making sure it's about them first before saying, hey, I need help. I need your teams to do this, this, and this. So I think you need to earn some of that goodwill. I think, of course, Mary, like, right, people are happy to help, but people are busy, people are slammed, people wearing multiple hats, right? So I think it would be a challenge to do on day one, but I think showing value first, showing you're investing in the team, showing up, actually, just joining a call, being a fly on the wall, seeing if you can get in the agenda here and there, understanding what, especially like our team and our programs are quite regional. So what works in Singapore may or may not be what worked for us here in DC, or what worked for us in London, or it works for us in the DACH region in Germany, for example. So I think just investing in them first, I would say, is my recommendation. So I think you can't go straight to the ask, right? Like you can't go,
Yeah.
hey, here's where your team's gonna jump in. I think that's my experience, but I'd love to hear like what others have found, or if they've seen different or anything else.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common. It's like thinking about the long game there instead of just jumping in and being like, "Hey, I'm new here, but you're going to do this for me because we're working together." And it doesn't always hit in a great way. You have to have build that relationship, show that you're working for the value for the customers, the same as them, show that you're willing to feed into the projects and the KPIs and metrics that they're working on and things like that. That's pretty much what I've heard across the board in the last 2 years of talking to people in these positions. Julie Thomas did ask, did you use any tools or software for your Pioneer program?
Yes, so I should have actually, I could have updated the slide with that. So great question there. Great question there, Julie. So I actually didn't, other than our existing stack. So though I would have maybe loved to, I heard you, Mary, talking about speed dating, grab some of these great vendor solutions out there, which are custom built. That wasn't an option from a couple of different regions, from budget, from capacity to integrate new tools, security, a couple of different elements. So I had to basically use our existing stack. And I think one thing I've found is, despite what people say about Salesforce, like it can actually capture some of what you're trying to do. It may not be as robust necessarily as, let's say, oh, you're trying to do references like a reference edge. I'd say some of the advanced functionality, some of that, but some of the kind of 101, maybe 201 stuff you can actually build into Salesforce. And I think you need two things for that, right? You need one, some lead time, and you also need like a systems or a biz tech or a biz ops team, whatever you guys call them at your company, to actually do that work for you. Because right, those teams are usually like slammed and busy with other things. So actually, I was able to, at least in the early going, use Salesforce and get some custom modules built there for some of these purposes. It's not maybe as fancy as some vendor tooling, right? Which I certainly appreciate, and certainly appreciate it's out of the box. But at the end of the day, also, I think it's important because Salesforce is a system of record, right? So if you want to prove something happened, it's got to integrate to Salesforce anyway. It's got to talk back to Salesforce. So I figured, hey, like let's start there rather than just like a spreadsheet, because if tooling wasn't an option for us. Oh, Christine, what was Christine? I don't know if you wanted to go a little deeper on that, Christine, but
When we were doing it, the adding the sales ops guys into the discussion was incredibly helpful because they could see the benefit that was going to come out of having this information in Salesforce. So it made it a little bit easier to get us higher on the priority list of things that they needed to do if we went directly to them rather than trying to work through other pathways to get there.
yeah, absolutely. And so it's certainly, I wouldn't say it's a silver bullet to go that route, I guess, Christine, sorry, Julie, to your question. But you know, I felt that I couldn't wait like, oh, for a year or two for, some solution to become available. Like, uh, the program elements existed. Customers wanted to do them. Our team wanted to do them. So said like, let's go with what we have. We can perhaps, if we need, we can in a V2, whatever, bring on board some tooling. But I think at the programmatic level, what we are trying to do doesn't require a tool, right? I think the program elements are product feedback, UX research, networking, sharing stories, right? So I think that waiting around, it wasn't an option. And being, I don't know if I love the word scrappy. I try to avoid using it, but I guess I just used it. But like, it's because but also I thought time was really of the essence. Like the foundational elements are there. Like, let's go. Like, could have waited a year for the next conference. That would have been even more beautiful. That whatever. But like a year would have gone by. Like in our space, in the crypto space, like a year is like 10,000 years. Like who knows how things will be, right? So it's like you go with the momentum. I had the executive support. I had support, from the key people. So systems go right. And I think, trying different things. Oh, Kathleen, you're gonna do an H2 launch. Yeah. So happy to chat afterwards. Sounds like you're gonna have some compressed timelines as well. Like find me anyway. And happy to chat if that would be helpful. But yeah, the way I thought about it was like, and actually I was talking with one of the execs, like, okay, you have 6 weeks, but if you had 12 weeks, a lot of those challenges will still be there. What if you had 24 weeks? You had still a lot of those challenges will be there, right? So I think it was the forcing function, and it actually helped because I could then get a little more rapid resources, right? If it were from like the design team, right? It would normally be in a queue, right? You submit a ticket and then it's in a queue along with many other projects. So in a way, I don't necessarily recommend it being having to be so quick, but if since it was quick, it actually helped get some more resources, sort of unlock sort of those internal people resources, which are always so slammed and have a lot of, just lots of asks and lots of tickets that they've got to look after. So yeah, but it was cool to see it come together, and now it's execute, right? And we've got another conference coming up, our big public sector one in July, and we'll have opportunity to be in front of our customers there. And always launching. We talked about industry awards earlier in this conversation, like which we're not doing. Now we're actually going to have our own awards and also launching in a maybe not 6 weeks, but like a 10-week kind of period for our own owned and branded customer awards for our public sector customers. So I think it just gives me a lot of momentum. It gives me a lot of hope and encouragement that like we got this, we can do it. I've had bigger teams. I've had multiple people reporting to me. I've had 0 people like I do right at this moment, but it we kind of got to dig deep, but also we're only have 24 hours, and that's why like this topic around these internal advocates, it felt pretty topical for me because I don't know about everyone, but like resources might be scarce these days for some of you too, right? Whether people or dollars or time or tools, like wherever that scarcity might be. I think that we need to, especially now, be trying things, right? There's no perfect, right? Like if you have to wait a year for perfect, then I felt like I would miss the boat, and maybe that's true for some others how they might feel. But I feel encouraged. I feel confident. I love that our customers like spending time with us. They like what we do, and that's all the encouragement I need. And of course, from the account teams, we're like, yeah, let's, when can we bring a cab or a working group to our region? Like those are the kind of questions I like to hear, right? Those are when we know we're able to the programs are kind of are having some impact. So yeah, so those that are considering to launch, I know Kathleen and some others like feel confident, go for it, right? If you have to wait a year, maybe you missed the moment, right? So I'd say like if H2 is coming up, which it is, Kathleen, right? Like maybe yeah, like lean into your team, lean into the resources you have, and I think for me, like really reading people and getting people to understand like what it is you're trying to accomplish, like even more than you might just like with a little creative brief or whatever like we're normally doing. Like for like the demand folks who are staffing my booth, I had to make sure that they felt as passionate and could talk about this in just like a way like I might, right? So if you have the luxury and opportunity of someone who like these internal advocates for you, like cool, but give them the skills, give them the tooling, give them whatever they need to be their best selves and to be, representing you in the program and, be on your behalf as much as you can. So yeah. Yeah.
Wow, Evan, this is great. Thank you so much for sharing. It's given me some ideas for maybe having a future call for just people working in the public sector, or at least an aspect of that, because I know we've had maybe Granicus or something like that, where they've been in the public sector, and I'm sure they would appreciate some kind of connection like this.
So I'm happy to, Mary. And I was just going to add to that. I would sort of like a yes. And I could have said, or I should have said, when I think about like public sector, I would also put like substitute for any of those really hard verticals. Like, I don't know if any of you are working a lot with like traditional finance banks, like bigger banks like those. I would think of them in similar ways, maybe not the similar tactics, but like they can't do those normal things. They can't do all those kind of things. So I would say, Mary, I could say public sector or anything that's like heavily regulated, right? Even if someone here like works like a lot with pharma, what works for most of the world like won't work for like big pharma, like some of the big tradfi, right? Politics, sure. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I'm happy, Mary, if it is just public sector, cool. I would definitely join that. I'm happy to listen in or chat with anyone that's there. But maybe even to broaden out, Mary, it could be any of those really heavily regulated spaces too that might have some of these similar challenges versus just working with a brand or other private sector companies. Just a thought.
No, that's a great idea. Because we do have people in those other sectors. We do have security too. I know that's a little hard because it's hard to get people in that space to function and do things as part of advocacy. But I'll definitely
I'll
run a
challenge you on
little bit
that,
of a
Mary.
poll.
I was in security for 10 years. I think it's much easier to get security folks than public sector folks. But I hear you. No, I'm just
All
kidding.
right. Well,
You
good to
can
know.
do it. Yeah, like you can do it. Like I don't know if anyone's in that space, but yeah, like there's ways. There's ways we can do it. We can brainstorm together. But yeah, 100%. Like let's if we want to keep it going, whatever format, yeah, I'm happy to listen in on that. And those are the tricky ones, but those are also the ones, Mary, right, that everyone is looking for, right? Like I'd say the only ones that I've seen that are actually uncrackable is or IBM and Nike. No, sorry, not IBM. I meant Apple and Nike. Anyone that's done those, let me know. I've tried those at 3 previous jobs and they didn't go. But everyone short of those for me is possible, right? Like I think I don't really take no as a no right away, right? So it's just you got to find another way. So I think that's what this is about: finding another way, finding a route that is allowed, and finding something that will work, and that ends that mutual win. I think a lot of this public sector ones that actually work, some of them we're actually able to do publicly, Mary, and those are the ones that, well, what we're trying to do and make noise about something is actually supportive of their mission, right? So finding like where those overlaps might be, because public affairs folks or like comms folks or they've got a job too, and they might need to get their name out there for their agency. So anything's possible, I think.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like we can maybe get you in for a couple more sessions to talk about things like working in security
Sure.
and customer marketing.
Yeah, happy to.
But thank you. Thank you so much for coming on today, and sharing all of this. I'm sure it's going to be popular with people wanting to learn a little bit more about working in the public sector, but also driving these internal advocates and things like that. So super helpful. Thank you so much.
You got it. Anytime. Well, good to connect with everyone. So hopefully those I don't already know, we can connect and find a way to stay in touch on these calls and other ways.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay, well, next week, we are just going to have an open discussion, and we have somebody from Laudable coming in June to talk about some of the AI and customer stories and just all of the fun things they talked about this week on the vendor speed dating. And I'll have a newsletter out next week with more information from that and the recording from this call. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you as well. Thanks, Evan.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Evan.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. Bye.